this video, we will look at the ototoxic effects of platinum-based chemotherapy treatments in survivors of childhood cancer. We will do so by dividing survivors into groups based on exposure to two types of platinum-based chemotherapy, cisplatin and carboplatin. To begin, we'll select the Groups tab at the top. And the first group that we will create will be based on the cisplatin variable. And we'll set the values of this variable to be greater than 0, indicating exposure to cisplatin treatment. And the second variable of this group will be carboplatin. And we'll set the values of this variable to equal 0, indicating no exposure to carboplatin treatment. And we'll label this group to be cisplatin only. For the next group will be a carboplatin only group. So we will search for first cisplatin and set this equal to 0, indicating no exposure to cisplatin. And for carboplatin, we will set this to be greater than 0. So this will be labeled as a carboplatin only group. The next group will be exposure to both treatments. So we'll set the values of the cisplatin variable to be greater than 0. And for the carboplatin variable, to also be greater than 0. We'll label this group as both. For the last group, will be exposure to neither treatment. So for cisplatin, we'll set this to equal 0. For carboplatin, the values will also be equal to 0. This group will be labeled as neither. We can also edit the color of this last group to be a light gray color. And we can then create a custom variable based on these 4 custom groups. And we can label this variable as platinum agents exposures. We'll create a custom variable. And now this is accessible in the portal. We can then overlay this variable onto other variables that are available in the portal. And we'll overlay this custom variable onto a bar chart of diagnosis groups. So you can see a bar chart of all the cancer diagnosis groups in the cohort, and they're overlaid with the custom groups that we generated above. To more clearly see the relationship between these variables, we can convert this chart into a proportion chart. And you can see that some cancer diagnosis groups were exposed to relatively high levels of platinum agents, namely central nervous system tumors, retinoblastoma tumors, neuroblastoma tumors, and a few other cancer types. So we can then filter for these specific diagnosis groups that were exposed to high levels of platinum agents. To do so, we will open the Filter tab, and then we will add a new filter for cancer diagnosis groups. And we will select the diagnosis groups that were exposed to relatively high levels of platinum agents. And germ cell tumor, nasopharyngeal carcinoma, and liver malignancies. So now the data is filtered for these 7 diagnosis groups. And then we can see the ototoxic effects of high platinum agent exposure in these diagnosis groups. So we can open up a chart of hearing loss grades for these diagnosis groups. So we can open up clinically assessed variables, graded adverse events, then go to auditory system and click on the hearing loss variable. So these are the grades of hearing loss for survivors within this filtered subcohort. And then to overlay our custom variable onto this chart, we can then go to overlay in the drop-down menu, and here we can see our custom variable. And now the chart is overlaid with our custom groups. And then when we convert it to proportion, we can see that survivors that developed more severe grades of hearing loss tended to be exposed to higher levels of platinum agents. And importantly, this trend appears to be specific to the cisplatin only group rather than the carboplatin only group. So this suggests that cisplatin is significantly more ototoxic within this cohort than carboplatin.